morning. I've been with Papa Bear at 9 o'clock, but this year I'll be with Bravo at 7:30. It's so nice to see everyone here. Hello. Happy. Want to go?
Sure. I'm Happy. I've been with the placement team since 2014. I did some placing in 7:30, but mostly I've been working 6 o'clock for the last few years, and we'll be placing in 6 o'clock this year with Hep Kitten. Papa Bear, go.
Hello, I am Papa Bear. I've been placing 9 o'clock since 2013. I also do flagging, putting all those blue flags in the ground, coming out in late July to mid-August. And I'm also placing 9 o'clock again this year. Let's go to KGB.
Hi everyone, KGB. I've been placing for, this will be my 7th year. I've placed a couple of years in 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And last year I was the lead in 4:30, and I will keep it a mystery as to what I am placing this coming year. Is anyone else on? Oh, Kozmik.
Hey everybody, I'm Kozmik, coming from Vancouver, BC, and my first year placing was 7:30, and last year I did 4:30 KGB, and this year it's 9 o'clock with Papa Bear. So I'm here to learn too from our lead placers as well. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's all of the placers we have on here. So I see Leah has a question. From Sparkle. She says, what carries more weight in placing? What you're doing or when? Any place.
Sorry, Muppet, I missed that.
Here, I can read it again. What carries more weight in placing? What you're doing or when?
I can jump in. This is KGB. I would say it's really a combination. So it's what you're doing in terms of innovativeness, creativity, and really kind of how much effort it might take in terms of the number of people in your camp that it might take to actually pull it off. But then also when and how often. I don't know if it's when so much as how often.
Awesome. Any other placers want to contribute to that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not quite so as important what time of day you're doing it, because we want a mix of everything. So hopefully there's enough options out there when we're placing the city. So really, it's like KGB said, it's what and that uniqueness level we talked about earlier in the presentations, and how much you're doing.
Cool. Just really quick, I'll answer this question. Candyman, formerly of Roasted Bro and Coffee Ho, asks, will the new camp application process be extended since the main sale is delayed? At this time, we're not gonna be changing the placement timeline, but it might in the future. But right now, we're keeping it as it is because it does affect a lot of other downstream things. So that's just a really quick answer to that question. Hey,
but I was slow in responding to the last question.
Oh, did you want to add something, Brooklyn?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I was slow to the unmute game. It is important in your PCQ to let us know the times that you're thinking about, because we do try and be mindful of that when we're placing people next to each other. So if you are a daytime camp and you've got events happening in the daytime, let us know that and be specific about that on your questionnaire, so that we don't set you next to someone that's also listed all daytime events. Or maybe we do want it all together, but the timing of it is important to us, and that's why we ask that question on the PCQ, is to say, what time are you doing things and for how long, so we can try and keep the lively events happening and to keep that neighborhood from being dead at all one time and alive at all one time.
I'd like to add on to what Brooklyn's saying too about that with timing, because if you look at the PCQ and someone's offering a unique experience on Sunday night open and nobody else is offering that, I personally like to see that you've got something that's a little different than a regular time that a lot of the other camps are offering something. So just to add that.
Cool, thanks everybody. I see that Jason from Pinhole Project has a question. Jason, do you want to unmute and ask your question yourself so we can see your lovely face?
Yes, hello everyone, how are you? So the Pinhole Project, or a Pinhole Camp, is a very old camp that's 21 years now. We were hosted in a village for a while, and we left and went on our own last year. I inadvertently filled out the wrong stupid form and I clicked container camp. And I kind of feel like I've been in this black hole of lack of resources. And how do I even get on the DGS list? I mean, we're a legitimate theme camp. We provide a lot of interactivity. And I mean, not sure about this year, but I have 0 tickets still and we need about 25. And I don't know how to like sign up or get on the list or move my ball forward. I just feel like I've been stuck for a while. It's been 2 years now. So that's my question. Was I clear on my question?
It sounds like you did this year. Are you filling out as a theme camp as opposed to a container camp?
I didn't know that the container camp checkbox was going to kind of railroad me into some other thing. We're a legitimate theme camp. We just happen to have a container. I clicked the wrong checkbox.
Yeah, well, I mean, so this year the first DGS sale is over, but this year we do have a number of tickets for a second run of DGS that's happening in June.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you should do is fill out as a theme camp. Check the circle of the first part of the theme camp.
Assuming that things move forward with 2020, as long as we apply correctly, there will be a potential window, is what you're saying.
Yes, and you'll want to email in and contact us after questionnaires are closed, saying, hey, we don't have any tickets, right? Really after the main sale happens, whenever that does actually happen, and say, hey, we don't have any tickets, we have this theme camp, and we will contact you with availability of tickets. That's
what I did last year, and then the response was, you're a container camp, you don't get anything.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know why it has to be so hard. It's just to be my 20th year, and like, this is still a stressful nightmare getting tickets, and I'm kind of.
I'm gonna just throw out, this is probably something that might be really specific, so maybe email, we can look at your case history and get back to you about what might have happened.
Cool. I mean, I've been corresponding with Hep Kitten, I believe, and some other people, but thank you for answering my question.
For sure.
And also, Jason, we don't want to make it hard. We're here to facilitate the city. So I'm sorry that you've had trouble communicating with us and letting us know what the situation is. But do be in touch, and let's see if we can get you what you need to bring your awesome Pinhole project in. But our goal is not to make it difficult. This is what we're here for, is to help you. So be in touch with us at Placement, and let's see if we can guide you in the right direction.
Awesome, thanks guys. I want to jump to 6 from Ply 54. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure, thank you. I have 2 actually that I wrote down, and I don't know if I should ask one at a time, but I'm going to just say them and then jump in. One is, how much like growth in interactivity is like sort of suggested for a camp? You know, this will be our 10th year, and we always try to add things and this, that, and the other thing, because I'm always so afraid that we don't have enough or something. But is there some sort of criteria, like how much is enough for like this tier camp or that tier camp? Like this many people or that many people? Is there some guideline? I guess I'll just start with that question first.
Well, I'll start off, and then other places can help jump in. Our expectation is camps do what they all that they can do with them. If the majority of your campers are helping do the interactivity in your camp, then that's what our expectation is. We don't expect camps to grow every year. We don't expect, if a camp is 25 people and they're going to be 25 people the next year, and and everybody's doing stuff, we don't expect you to add even more interactivity, because we don't want you guys to kill yourselves trying to. It was the thing that they were talking about earlier. I don't know if you were in the earlier session about this, the arms race of camps competing against each other to try to get placed. And we're not trying to do that kind of thing. But if camps can, as a camp is more established and they hang around longer, they've got, they can add more visual stimulation, more lighting or something like that to make it, to improve the appearance of their camp. And maybe it becomes easier to do some stuff and you can add a little bit more, but it's not we don't want you guys to kill yourselves to create theme camps for Burning Man.
That's great. Thank you.
I would just add to that. This is KGB. That it's been hard, I know, in the past, the way that you either got placed or you didn't get placed, and there was no kind of rating to tell you how, if you were on the edge or if you were amazing. So I think going forward, when we have a little more information about your score, your rating and how well you did, it'll give you a better idea of whether you need to step it up or not. And I know for now it's been a little mysterious because it's been, a yes or no answer. But as you get more information, I think it'll be easier to figure out.
Great, thank you. My second question is just about just because I get so neurotic about it, and I appreciate your comment to Governess about not competing for things, because I did submit my application already, and it takes it takes me 7 hours to do it, or at least this time. And there's always things I forget or things I wish I changed, and I know that there's an effort to update placement as needed and such, but is there this is too much contact, this is too many updates, is there some guideline to that as well?
As far as you guys,
or do you just welcome it? Or do you just welcome it?
Do you want me to jump in, Governess?
Go on, KGB.
I would just say that we like detail and we like to know what you're going to do, and a physical description, a timeline description of it, but we don't need a creative writing exercise. So it's kind of a balance between, we don't want Tom Robbins. We want a little more Kurt Vonnegut in the way of your writing. Just tell us what you're going to do. So we kind of understand it, but we don't need it to be a really creative writing exercise.
I guess just put yourself in our shoes too, right? We read hundreds of these things, and we are interested to know the philosophy of your camp or where it came from, but we don't need the entire chronology of how you came to be. And then also when we ask you to be specific, be specific. Because we look at how many of there are you, and what are you each doing, or what do you intend to do? And we know that things change, and they should, right? We ask you to commit pretty early in the year to something that you're going to be doing several months later. So if things do change, just be in touch with us at Burning Man put your sector number and the name of your camp in your email, so it's easy for the person that is maintaining the inbox to put it in the right folder, and then just be in touch with us.
I'm assuming you meant placement at Burning Man, yeah?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, correct. Pardon me.
Thank you so much. That answers my question.
Let's go throw one more thing out there. If you are increasing the size of your camp, then we do want you to see you increasing your interactivity. You have more people, therefore you can do more stuff. If you're staying the same size, just keep doing what you're doing, add little things. But if you're getting bigger, then we want to see more.
And also, we may need to see a new camp map, right? If you increase the size of it, we may ask you to generate a new one, and you send that to the same place.
Yeah, your camp map from 2003 probably needs to be updated.
Yeah, it should be updated. Yeah.
Tagging on with what Papa Bear was saying, I was going to add to that. If you're increasing your size, I definitely go back to your previous applications or questionnaires and look at your previous sizes in ratio to interactivity. So if you're growing substantially in numbers, then I would go back and look at what you were submitting before too. So give the feedback.
And also, boy, I seem to be taking Papa Bear's place and talking. Also, if you're in old camp and you just cut and paste from your last year's, you may be doing yourself a disservice because we do move around. And I was also notified that I let the cat out of the bag. I'm not supposed to say which sector I was in. So forget that you heard that. But we do move around. And so if you're a camp that's always at one spot, you may be getting a new placer in and they may not know what you're doing. So change things and update them, and don't rely on your last one. Make sure to bring it to speed and bring it up to date.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next, I see Blair. Not sure what camp you're with. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure, thanks. We're actually hopefully a new camp this year. We've all been to Burning Man before, but this would be the first time we'd be a theme camp who's placed. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Let me just, my question, where did I put it?
What's up?
Okay, so basically when we're considering a footprint, we're kind of looking at two different options. One of them would be what I assume is more of a standard shape, sort of like a cube type of a shape, but the other option would be like a long and narrow camp. And so I guess I have two questions. One of them, is there even such a thing as standard versus irregular? And does that make a difference in terms of getting placed? Would it be easier to be placed if you're of a weird shape or a normal shape? And then also just, we'll have such a small camp the first year of 6 people. Does that put us at an advantage or a disadvantage generally for getting placement?
I'll take that one. We love when camps start small if it's the first year, and then you learn and you grow and you iterate and all that stuff. As far as shapes go, camps can submit, the shapes that they want. Some want like an L-shaped camp, and they'll draw out a map, and we'll try to accommodate that. Most do kind of squares or rectangles, and we change the shape if we see that, for instance, a camp is asking for 100 feet of frontage, but it looks like their interactivity can actually fit in. We map in right now in increments of about 25 to 50 feet. It's been traditionally 50, sometimes it's 25 now because we've changed the city grid a little bit. So if we think your frontage can fit in a smaller, or if your interactivity can be in a smaller frontage, we'll squish you down because that means we can fit more camps in.
Okay.
So yeah, submit the layout that your ideal thing, and then we look at the layout and then we just kind of adjust as needed.
Okay, so it would be a discussion. Essentially, like you guys would let us
sometimes,
know.
Sometimes, or we'll just let you know.
All right, great. Well, thank you.
I'd like to jump in here, and if you can be flexible, point that out in your questionnaire.
Okay, perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Here's our map. By the way, our map is flexible. You can make us an L. You can make us long and skinny.
Okay.
That helps us play the giant game of Tetris and fit everyone in on the plan.
Great. Well, we're even in the process of sketching it out now, right? And having these different shapes. Would you like us to send you like 2 options, or is that too much?
I don't think that's too much. I mean, we ask for a picture, and it needs to be fairly clear. And if you can sort of fit both layouts in the picture, that would be fine.
Okay.
You can also send us email with an alternate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to throw something out on this too is that I forgot what I was going to say, but so when you start the questionnaire, because in theory you should be able to save and come back to it, when you put in your population number, it's going to tell you a square footage that we expect for the amount of population that you think your camp is going to be. And so that will give you that first start of like, oh, I need to be a 50 by 100 because I have this many people, 50 feet by 100 feet. I'm not sure if that's available in that PDF document that we send out with sample questions, but when you start the questionnaire, you can get there and look at it and think about it and then go back and draw your camp plan. Before you submit, you have to have all the stuff, including your camp plan, uploaded and ready to go. But it can give you a way to work off of that and go, okay, we should map our thing to this rectangle or this square, and then adjustments will happen in the future.
Perfect.
In addition to that, if you think, we estimate about, somebody's not on mute.
Oh, cold.
we estimate about 400 square feet on average per person per camp, and that includes living space and interactivity space. If you go into the questionnaire, you'll see that the size, the population you put in is about the size we're going to give you, and that's what it equates to. If you can be smaller than that, if you need less space, then let us know as well. There's a comment section that you can say, this is the average you tell me, but please let me, we don't need that much room, because that again helps us with mapping out the city and trying to get more theme camps that meet the criteria into the city and stuff like that as well.
And when you're drawing your maps, could you do it in feet? It's really hard to convert. Oh, it's not hard. It just takes time to convert from metric or from your own individual space drawings. Again, we're looking at a lot of them. We ask you to do it in 50-foot increments. So if you could do that on your applications, that would be great.
Okay, there was a question about where that link to the questionnaire sample was. I just threw it up in the chat. You can also get to that when you're going to fill out the questionnaire. Right before you enter the questionnaire, it says see sample PDF right there on the website, so you can easily reference it. Okay, so the stack is stacking up. Thank you guys for bearing with this process. The next person I had was Jeff from Square One. Jeff, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, my name is actually Lee. I'm using Jeff's account. So we're a camp of 160. We've been 160 for the last 5 years-ish. This will be my 10th year as a TCO. But up until last year, everything was great. This year, we received a limited interactivity camp standing, which was surprising, also emotionally devastating. But and that limited our DGS. But my biggest, it surprised me, but also it kind of makes sense because in the application we could only apply as one thing, and we have a mutant vehicle that takes about 80 to 100 people. We are a theme camp. We supply playa art support. We transport things into the burn. We move a lot of containers through OSS. So is there a way for us to receive credit on multiple departments and not be deducted as a theme camp because we were judged as saying your interactivity is not enough? Now, whether that's correct or not, there was no way for them to take account into all the other departments that we're involved with. So how do I overcome this issue instead of just eliminating everything else and focusing just on being a good theme camp? I think that would be a disservice to the burn.
Which camp are you with?
Square One. We used to be called Epic.
Oh, okay, okay. So Paul Brand can probably help answer this as well, but what we ask is be specific with, and the question has evolved a little bit in the last couple of years, where you've got your theme camp, you've got your mutant vehicle, you've got our support and other things happening. We're asking for a breakdown of what people in your camp are doing. So if you've got 100 people dedicated to doing the interactivity in your camp, say we've got these people doing this, and this is the interactivity. We've got 30 people working on the mutant vehicle, and this is what they do. Because then we can it makes it easier for us to kind of see where the breakdown happens with the population of your camp and what people are doing. A theme camp is, I can't remember now what the percentage is. Is it 75%?
We don't have a percentage set yet. There is work happening around this. So currently what it is that if you are a theme camp as opposed to an art support or a mutant vehicle camp, we expect your primary focus to be on the in-camp interactivity of your theme camp as opposed to the other projects you're working on. If your primary focus is your mutant vehicle, then you are a mutant vehicle camp. If it's the art installation of playa, you're an art support camp. What is being discussed now but has not been fully approved yet or put into place is that we are looking at how to create hybrid camps, which would be your situation right there, and how that looks in terms of getting DGS, getting placement, etc. But that's a work in progress. Probably won't get rolled out this year. Maybe it would, probably not, because otherwise we'd have it on the questionnaire already. So maybe for 2021. But so for this year, just if you want to be a theme camp, your primary focus should be the in-camp interactivity. And like Governess said, just be really clear about who's working on what, how many people are doing what parts of the project, so we can look at it in that way.
Okay. Would applying for a village fix that problem for this year, or does it not matter?
So a village is at minimum 2 theme camps. So in that, if you have one theme camp, one art support, and one mutant vehicle, you're not a village because you're not two theme camps. So it need to be separate theme camps joining that might have another mutant vehicle camp in it, etc.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, I see Victoria, and she has a question about manned versus unmanned interactivity. Do you want to ask that, Victoria? Victoria?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I have a question just with regard to how, whether you value equally manned or unmanned interactivity. I really try to stay in my lane as far as my camp is concerned. I've learned what we really can do and what we can't do. And some of the things that we're looking at doing are offering some unmanned interactivity that will, operate mostly at night because it's all to do with lights. But I'm also just kind of cognizant of the fact that I've seen other camps that have a high level of, not that I'm looking at a high level, but that are using that kind of interactivity, and I'm not sure that it's being valued because maybe it's not creating a more human connection. I'm not sure. So I'm just curious to hear.
Yeah, I got this one. So it's something that I think we're slowly starting to work into the wording of active versus passive interactivity. So active interactivity is going to be that stuff where you have human interaction. People are involved in the camp in whatever the interactivity is that participants are enjoying. Passive is something that you're able to set it up and walk away, yet participants can still interact with it and enjoy it. We definitely value active over passive. Active means human interactions. We want interactivity on its highest level is human interactions in some ways. So we definitely look at the active stuff as a higher level than passive. However, that being said, passive is great too. Like an awesome art installation in your camp is really cool. Your little thing that people come and find and check out when you're not there is really cool. So we don't want to steer you away from not having that awesome passive thing that people have really enjoyed, but we want you to be aware that you need to also balance that and have more active going on than just passive. Does that help?
Massively. Thank you so much. Good answer.
Okay, next up is Char. Char, I see your question. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure, thanks. We're a first-time camp, and my question is, there's a part in the questionnaire that says, what street do you want to be on? What avenues do you want to be on? And is there a certain logic of choosing one versus the other than being away from the sound camps or not? Are there certain sectors that have certain themes to them? And I have a second quick follow-up after that too.
I'll take this one, I think. We don't generally do, I feel like I'm doing all the talking, sorry, other placers. We try to mix things up all across the city. So we try not to create themed areas for parts of the city, apart from large scale sound. And they're their own separate sector because they have to be at the end of the city so that their speakers face directly out to open play and they're not affecting the rest of the city. So if you desperately want to be away from a large scale sound camp, you put that in the comments section saying you don't. But otherwise, I think we just try to get a variety of questions, a variety of camps in the sectors to create interesting neighborhoods all over the city.
Okay, great, thank you. And the second question I have is, what are the biggest reasons why camps don't get placed?
This is KGB. Let me just follow up on that first one. One thing to think about, you can give your first, second, and third choice sectors that you want to be in, but when it comes to whether you want to be an avenue or a street, etc., look at what each of those areas has a requirement for how much interactivity you have to provide to be on them. So for the Esplanade, it's a certain thing. For an avenue, any avenue, it's a certain level. And for a street, it's a certain level. And so think about how much interactivity you're providing and try to be accurate about what you're asking for. So if you have, 3 days a week for 2 hours in the afternoon, you provide a thing, don't ask to be on the Esplanade because that's not, that's probably not where you should be. And you should put, ask to be on a street, because that's most likely what matches what your interactivity is.
Great, thank you.
And there's a question about the difference between an avenue and an avenue or the numbers, and the streets are the letters, and the largest interactivity, just as KGB just said, is the esplanade, and then the avenues, and then it would be the streets.
And it is nice when camps ask to be placed at the back of the city.
Char, was that helpful?
Yes, thank you so much. Very helpful, thank you.
Okay.
Can you repeat your second question again?
Yeah.
What's the biggest reason why camps don't get placed? We want to avoid those reasons. So just
not enough.
How do you avoid the biggest mistakes that people make?
The main one is not enough interactivity for the size of your camp. Like if you have a 100-person camp and you're doing 2 hours a day for 3 days, that's really not enough interactivity. So that's the big one, is you're just not doing enough. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that?
I would add that, one of the reasons for placement is so that you can get in early during build week and get everything built and set up so that you're ready for when the gate opens, you're there as a theme camp. And if we look at what you're building and doing and think that, you could probably put all that together in about an hour and a half, then you probably don't need pre-placement in the city, because you could show up when the gate opens and get that set up and ready to go before Monday anyway.
I'm going to jump in and take a bit of exception to that. Even if it only takes you an hour and a half, we are trying to build the best temporary city we can. And if you've got something really cool and interesting, we might definitely want to slot you in synergistically next to these other camps that you might work well with. So yeah, that's not necessarily a reason to turn you down. And then something that happens, fortunately, very rarely, if your camp last year was a dumpster fire, you're probably not getting placed this year.
Not literally a dumpster fire.
Dumpster fires are your theme.
Unless it's your theme, right, exactly, yeah.
You'll feel that way right about now, maybe. Awesome, okay, I'm going to go on to the next question, and then I also realized maybe this would be helpful if I queue up the next person. So next up is Ivan from Hugzilla. You can ask your question, and then following that is going to be Admiral Painjoy from Spanky's Wine Bar. So Ivan, go ahead.
All right, here I am, shoot me. So I'm not sure if we were a dumpster fire, but I have a feeling that we were. So I don't have much expectations for replacement. But we have learned a lot this year, and we are going smaller and trying to step back a lot. And so one of the things Jeff Evans just asked the same question I had about there's no category for a team camp with an art car. But my second question would be, if the art car is performing in front of the camp for 6 hours, let's say every day, does that consider interactivity of the camp? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a dance party or something like that in front of your camp, and they're part of your sound system. We've had large scale, because I know you're a large scale sound camp. We've had other large scale sound camps that have had mutant vehicles that their mutant vehicle became part of their stage in front of their camp. And then they did the performances there, and then they were also taking the car out in the night or something like that. But the primary focus for the car was within the camp to form part of this stage. So yes, but you've got to be very specific in your questionnaire about what you're doing. Does that help?
Awesome. Thanks, Governess. So Admiral Painjoy, you're up next. Sorry, I don't know who's after that. So Admiral Painjoy, go ahead, and then I will find the next person in the chat. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Cool. I'm Admiral Painjoy. I run Spanky's Wine Bar, a 23-year burner, 20 years running theme camps. During the evolution of Burning Man, during the couple of decades that I've been running theme camps, one of the things that I've noticed is that space is becoming a premium for a lot of camps. I know that you guys in placement do a Herculean job, and you need to have formulas in order to try and satisfy all of the different demands that camps have regarding space. One of the things that Spanky's and other camps have done over the years is try and get people in our camp to park their vehicles off-site. And years ago, that was something that was pretty easy to do. You could just park in the outskirts of the city. Then space got tighter, so we were parking like near the porta potties on certain blocks, and that seems to be getting pretty tight now too. Also, there are certain theme camps that require a lot of space for bicycle parking, for example. There are certain camps that are very popular at certain times of day. Pink Mammoth, for example, if anybody's ever gone dancing over at Pink Mammoth, they're within the heart of the city, and bicycles being parked in the streets is a terrible problem for them during their daytime parties. Spanky's happens to be very popular during the nighttime parties, and we run into the same problem where we just don't have enough space for all the bicycle parking. We've done everything we can to try and get our campmates to bring as few vehicles as possible. But Spanky's is an international camp, and it's very hard for a great number of us to carpool together. So my question is, has placement given this some consideration over the past couple of years since space has become such a premium? And is a possible solution to this having maybe a parking area somewhere on the outskirts of the city, maybe just past 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, so that some of the theme camps that really need extra space can park vehicles off-site?
I'll start off on this one, and then hi, Admiral Painjoy, nice to see you. Yeah, this is something that the placement team we talk about every year because it is a problem, and space is a premium. But we've always asked apart from a couple of experiments, we've always asked camps to keep their vehicles within their camp boundaries because there is no space within the city because theme camp areas has grown so much that there's not a lot of open camping left, and we're trying to preserve the open camping for people that don't want to be placed theme camps. Placing parking outside of 10 and 2, as you mentioned, isn't feasible for safety reasons and things like that. So it's ongoing discussion. We still haven't we've not settled on anything yet. So the general request is there's the burner express bus, which is an awesome thing if people can use that, and keep your vehicles within your camp and plan within that. And as far as bicycle parking goes, that's something that a few of the camps that I have placed before, we see the need for the bicycle parking and make sure that they've got the space, and they work it into their camp layout and make it very clear that they need bicycle parking in the questionnaire by building bike racks or whatever, just to make sure that they've got that space allocated to keep the roads free. Because one of the key things that we're tasked with doing during the event is making sure that the roads are open in case emergency vehicles need to go down any of the streets or avenues.
This is KGB. I would add one thing. When it comes to parking, the way that we give camps space is a certain number of square footage per person. So if a camp has 20 people, they're getting a certain number of square foot for each of those people. And if a camp has 200 people, it's a relative amount. They get 10 times more space. So for a camp with 200 people that has a lot of cars, should they get extra space for parking when a 20-person camp has a relative amount of cars per their space too? So, I know that you're a large village, but you're getting as much space per camper as a camp of 10 people.
Right, I understand that. It doesn't have to do with our population in our camp. I understand your philosophy on that. What it does have to do with is the highly interactive nature of the camp. Some camps are extremely popular, and that's where the problem comes in with extra bike space.
Admiral, I'd like to jump in here. You should ask for the amount of space that you need.
Yeah.
And that should include space to park bicycles. For visitors, that should include space to park your vehicles. And if that's more space than we might typically give a camp with your population, you should be able to back up why you need that space. There are certain camps that get a larger amount of space. Like one that pops to mind is Midnight Poutine, which doesn't have a great population, but they have a huge line every night. And the line can't be snaking down the streets, and they have more space for their line than we would typically give a camp that's about that population. So just back it up, ask for what you need, we'll work it out.
There is a spot in the questionnaire for you to explain why you're asking for more space than the drop down says. When you select, I have this many people, it tells you this much square feet, and you can enter in, well, we're actually going to be this big, and then there's an area where you can write to us, this is why we're asking for more space. So that would be where you do that, and then we'll email you and negotiate and talk and figure it out. But just make it clear at the beginning.
If I could ask one quick follow-up, does anybody know which department I would talk to about the what, where, when guide?
Hey, this is Muppet. Yeah, someone else asked me a question privately, so I'll just say this out loud. Our team is not responsible for the what, where, when. Playa Events is that team, and you can reach them at Playa Events, all one word, at burningman.org. And actually, the person I sent the chat to, I misspelled it. I said Playa Event. Only one single event wouldn't be a really exciting Burning Man. It is Playa Events, plural. Awesome. Up next is Thomas, or Tomas, I'm not sure, with My Monkey, My Circus. And then after that is going to be, oh my God, I thought this would work, and now I can't find the second person. Okay, Thomas, go ahead, and I will line that next person up shortly.
Hi everyone, I'm Thomas, 8-year burner, third hopefully year with theme camp organizer. We're a fairly small camp. Everyone can hear me, right? Cool. We're a fairly small new camp, still cutting our teeth, you know, probably tripping a lot along the way on ourselves, and we want to make this as easy of a process for you guys as much for us. And sometimes in the application process, we really want to, you know, let ourselves shine, but we don't want to make a lot of legwork for you guys to read through. What are some good areas that we should expand on? I know there's some specific parts you guys actually put out there, say, you know, embellish here, but what's some good maybe examples of boiler point information, and also what are some like major wins you guys see in the application process?
I like it when I'm reading a questionnaire and it makes me laugh out loud. It's a great break from reading 20 or 30 questionnaires a day for 2 months. So if you have a good sense of humor, or your camp is a good sense of humor camp, that just makes all that work we're doing before we start mapping a little bit more enjoyable.
I really like lots of pictures of what your interactive stuff really is, not the pictures of your whole campmates. Visually seeing what your camp looks like at night, during the day, and interaction is super helpful for me. Thanks.
Just to add on to what Kozmik says, it's really funny that, you know, we give a space for camps to provide 2 photos, and so many times one of those is just a photo of like the group photo of everybody in the camp. And it's great that, you know, you're all beautiful people and we love you, but it's better if you replace that with a picture of your front edge or a picture of people doing stuff in your camp rather than that beautiful photo of all your campers.
Awesome point, KGB. Awesome. So up next is Kevin from Flash and Burn Village. And then following that is Jurian Timmer. So Kevin, go ahead, and then Jurian, you're on deck.
All right, well, thank you. Excited to be on here and I've already heard a lot of things I needed to know, so thank you very much. Really love the deeper blocks that you're doing now. It helps for a giant village like mine. But my biggest question is, how big is too big? At what point do you want me to split this into multiple villages or multiple camps? Right now we've got 6 camps, and I've got requests from different fire troops that want to join our village. I just don't want to get too big to the point where I'm taking over too much space. So at what point do you guys start saying, right now I'm at about 250 people. At what point do you guys want me to start saying, hey, let's split this into 2?
I can partially answer that. And related to that, one thing to keep in mind is the bigger and bigger that you get, that limits where we can put you. So if a camp is really huge and they want to be on A street or B or something like that, we may not be able to fit you there because you're going to take up so much space, and we may have to put you on E or F or something, or, you know, so just keep that in mind. This isn't a really good answer to how big is too big, but just remember that the bigger you get, it limits where you can be.
Yeah, and we're not as worried about where we are, other than we love the deep blocks that are closer, just because we can fit more people back behind our interactivity. But we just wanted to make sure we're not, you know, if it gets up to 400 people or something, is that a point where we say, hey, that's enough, we're not taking any more camps?
Well, from a perspective of growing a theme camp to that big, you know, we've seen problems, you know, with you don't know your campmates, and this is an acculturation kind of thing, so not really part of this discussion specifically, but I had a camp years ago that they started off at 75 people. They grew slowly, fairly slowly over about 5 years to 300, and then they imploded. And then they went all the way back down to 50. And when they came back the second year, I was like, what happened? They said, too big, didn't know anybody, lots of problems within the camp. And they decided to go back to a 1 degree of separation from one of their 10 core leads, and no bigger than that ever again, which was an interesting thing to hear from a theme camp, because a lot of camps think that they just need to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I personally don't think that that's necessarily a thing.
No, and yeah, I would agree. I'm not looking, we have it as 6 separate theme camps within a village. So we keep each camp so that they are interactive within their own group. But thank you, that's good information.
Awesome. Okay, so I have Jurian next, and let me find the next person. I will send you a message, person who's on deck. So Jurian, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Uriam from Feed the Artist. Sorry, I should have put the camp name by my name. But just wanted to say thank you for all your help. Thank you for the Governess and Shadow. We've been on the playa at 10 o'clock for many, many years. And it's really great to always be in the same spot for us, because every night we're feeding basically a hungry zombie apocalypse of people coming from nearby sound camps. I just had a curiosity question about the process. I mean, you're all drinking from a fire hose, taking in thousands of applications, and you have this huge city. Where do you start in the process? Do you just assume that camps are going to stay where they are unless proven otherwise, or do you start from scratch every year? I'm just really curious. And on that note, if maybe someone could update the process of adding to your volunteer staff. I know you guys are expanding, but I would imagine that the current situation around the world is maybe putting that on the back burner. Just curious on where that process is. Thank you.
I'll start off with Jurian, since you're one of my theme camps. Hello. We try to move people around. I mean, you guys have been in a similar spot for a number of years, just because of just how it happens on the playa and the needs of, because you guys do a very specific thing, and we don't want to put you next to in between a couple of really, really large sound camps, because you guys, can I say the name of your camp? So you guys are Feed the Artists. So you guys are going out and feeding artists that are building their projects during build week, and then during the event, you guys have like a midnight 1 a.m. food court with a bunch of cars that serve food and do stuff. So you need to be on one of the 10 or 2 o'clock avenues. So anyway, but we try to move camps around, because if we put them in the same location for too long of a period of time or a number of years in a row, they start to feel like it's theirs, and it's not, because it's a temporary city, and we tend to try to move things around. A couple of years ago, we moved the Esplanade around quite significantly, and a lot of people freaked out, but a lot of people really quite liked it, because it just adds to this temporary thing that we're doing for 1 week in this crazy location. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
This is KGB. I just want to add to that. When it comes to priority, we start with what you request. So if you have a first, second, and third choice sectors, that's kind of the priority that we start with of what you want. You may not end up with your first or second or even third choice, but that's sort of where we start, at least.
And then as far as your other question about volunteers, we, Muppet and Level and a few other places have been interviewing a crazy number of people to join the team. And I think we're looking to add 10 or so. Muppet would know the answer better, but we're looking to add, about 10 or so people to the team for this year. And then I don't know what the plans are for the future, but, hopefully we're going from 17 to maybe 27 or 30 this year.
Thank you.
Sweet. Yeah, that's about the right number. And we're looking to sort of bring, I think folks who applied would have noticed we're doing kind of like a mix now of placers and also trying to build up a new idea of a specialist role. So hopefully we will have plenty of hands to take care of all this work in the future.
But that said, there are other ways to volunteer. If you guys are interested in being on the placement team, there's the camp survey squad that happens during the event. Just want to pitch that, because it's an amazing thing, and it's outside of placement, but really tied into, we take their information that they gather from talking to theme camps and bring it back to us, so we can have a better picture of what people are doing and how they feel about placement and the process and all that stuff. And pay attention to the newsletter. We'll talk about that there.
Great. Reverend Stamper is up next. Reverend Stamper, go ahead.
Okay, I have just kind of a general question. First one is, can you hear me? Okay, I'd just like to get some idea of how you guys are thinking when you're placing the small groups together in a larger neighborhood. You seem to group camps together for some sort of variety. Just want to know what kind of thinking is involved in that process.
Hi. When we're putting a bunch of small camps together, we're really looking to build an interesting, vibrant, interactive street. We want camps that are active at night and active during the daytime, camps that are doing a variety of different things, visually interesting to draw people down the street, to walk into the city and serendipitously discover new things that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. So I can't say that we're looking, for any one thing in particular. It's just that, we try to place camps together that we think will build a little interesting neighborhood. At the same time, we try and not put the electronic dance camp next to the Tibetan tea ceremony camp.
And we also try to create a bit of whimsy and serendipity and stuff like that. So it's as Happy said, it's part of creating these interesting neighborhoods that people want to go to and discover things that they might not necessarily have come across in their normal trek around Burning Man.
Yeah, this is KGB. Something I would add to that is, if you think about a really interesting city street that has, let's say, 10 or 20 shops that have a bunch of different things, you would rather walk down that sidewalk than to walk in front of a Walmart that probably has all those things also. But the front of the Walmart isn't going to be anywhere near as interesting as that city street with all the different things. You also wouldn't want to walk down that city street if they had, 20 coffee shops, because who needs 20 coffee shops next, or 20 bookstores, or whatever it is. So we don't want to put everybody the same on a street. We want variety so that it's an interesting street that you would want to walk down or bike down. And that variety of smaller camps, or a mix of small and big camps, is probably more interesting than one giant camp doing one thing, or two giant camps. So those are sort of the things we think about sometimes.
The other thing that gets factored in there is that because you can put in your first sector choice, it's happening organically because of who's picking the first sector choice. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get placed in that first sector choice, but if a lot of camps that are like you or thinking like you want to put 430 sector as their first choice, that tends to organically grow that way as well.
Okay, thank you. My other question's already been answered. I just want to say we appreciate all the hard work you do.
Thank you. Next up with, I think, a really awesome question is Sparky. Sparky, go ahead. Sparky, are you there?
Yeah, I just, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
I was wondering if you could tell us the biggest theme camp fail dumpster stories.
I'm going to preface this also, placers, with let's try and keep identifying information confidential, but maybe paint a picture in broad strokes. I just thought this question was really fun.
There was that year a camp built these livable structures that caved in after we had chatted with them about the fact they probably shouldn't do it. We wanted to see engineering specs because we were worried about the safety of them, but they built them anyways, even though they were unplaced in someone else's camp, and they caved in with people inside of them. That was horrible.
For me, there was a camp one year that had this extremely ambitious build that they wanted to do. Like I said, I've been placing large scale sound camps, so there's a lot of big, gigantic builds that happen out there. And it was a first year camp, and they had this amazing thing that they wanted to do. And I spent a lot of from May till the event asking if they were sure it was ready. Did they try to build it off playa and all of this stuff? And they were very confident that they were able to pull it off. And those poor people, I've never seen a camp work so hard through Saturday of burn trying to get their theme camp running, which they never ever did because they just couldn't. Everything went wrong. And they were just too much too soon, instead of that I mentioned earlier, starting small and iterating. I had another camp actually a couple years ago. These guys were fantastic. Actually, I'll talk about these. Sorry, just two stories. They were coming from overseas. Their structure, they were art support camp and a theme camp. Their art structure, which sounded amazing, got held up in customs because it was a metal structure and it was stuck in customs. It wasn't going to be released until after the event. They found this out luckily before they got to Playa. So they spent 10 days in San Francisco rebuilding the thing out of wood instead of metal. They're driving it from San Francisco out to the Playa, and I think just over the pass, the vehicle broke down. They couldn't rent another vehicle. They finally found another vehicle. They got it to the Playa. They got a flat just before, as they got to the gate. They finally got into their space and we placed them. And then their vendor for the generator canceled their generator. And they were, again, and then able to find a generator and finally do their thing. And it was just an amazing feat of everything that can go wrong will go wrong for them, but they persevered and were able to do this amazing thing.
Any other placers have a story they want to share?
I have so many, but maybe we should do more questions.
Great. Moving on.
Yeah, that's a cocktail hour thing that we can just, for day.
Cocktail hour after today's content like we usually do. So hopefully we can all just raise a glass virtually. Next up, I have Logistic from Entheos with a question. And after that, Swaggy from Camp Bang Bang. So Logistic, go ahead.
Unmute there. There we go. Thank you for all your hard work. You guys are awesome. I know some of you work with directly, and you guys have just been so great. We're one of those big camps that does a lot of stuff. Like in the background, you can see like over the last couple of years, we built this trampoline sports arena. We have a boutique, you know, coffee, a number of, you know, workshops, that kind of thing. And so we're doing like hard 24/7 interactivity plus other interactivity that's running like 12 hours a day. And 2018, we were Esplanade. We even got bigger. We were in the Double Deep Village block this in 2019, which was great and fun. The only challenge we really had is it's an area that's like expecting, you know, about 8 hours of interactivity a day. And we were just like, let's bring 24/7 interactivity to the hood and do it. But I think that was a challenge. Most of our like neighbors were great, but for like a few people, it was kind of a challenge of like, why don't you guys just like shut down? So we're trying to like kind of negotiate being sensitive to our neighbors depending on where we're placed or just how to be positioned right so we can be providing that 24/7 interactivity and having it accessible without, you know, sometimes it's easier when you're in an area that's expecting it than in one that's not. Do you have any advice kind of on that?
Anybody?
Hi, I'll jump in here. If you filled out a questionnaire and said, we're going to be active 24/7 and this is all the stuff we're doing, I kind of think you've done what you need for us to be able to place you appropriately. If you told us that you were a Tibetan tea ceremony camp and then you show up with the trampolines and the dance music and the whatever, then yeah, that could probably be a problem. So yeah, I mean, if you end up as an Esplanade camp or one of the big avenues and you're active almost all the time or all the time, your neighbors should probably kind of expect that because of where they're placed.
And remember, on the questionnaire is a place away from or place next to. Now I can't remember the exact wording of it, but
doing both now. Doing both this year. Place next to and placed away from. It's new.
So if your neighbors are interested in a more quiet neighborhood, they might want to tick that box. If they're interested in being a 24/7 camp, also they should tick that box. So, I mean, if they come to you and say you're too loud and we want to sleep, you can have a conversation, you can flag us down, we can help you with that conversation. But I also support what Happy just said, which is we didn't come to Burning Man to sleep. And if you did, you might request being placed in the outer rings of the city as opposed to closer by. So it's really lovely of you to be mindful and of what your neighbors' needs are. And those of you who want to have a quiet experience might want to let us know that by saying it in your questionnaire.
But I would like to jump back in here. Neighborliness is something that we look for.
Yeah, we err on the side of that. Like we would just rather shut down, like, you know, interact, even though like we're never like even close to sound limits there, but we'd rather shut down and like maintain kind of, you know, positive neighborliness than you know, than right over that. But then we have a whole bunch of volunteers that are like staffing all of that, that we're now saying, oh, like your contribution is now held up, you know, so that's, it's a challenge, you know, like we're always going to err on the side of neighborliness, but you know, we also had people that are prepared and worked hard and are working hard on Playa that we don't want to just shut down because one person
I
complains.
can add something to that. Is part of neighborliness is also going to your neighbor camps and chatting with them and being like, hey, do you have any events coming up that require it to be quieter? Like, are you doing a workshop or that kind of thing? And they, in theory, should have a schedule of events and stuff. And if both of you are coming at it with open minds of negotiation and conversation, you should be able to reschedule slightly things a little bit so that you're not interfering with each other. That's just the kind of thing I do on Playa with theme camp organizer to theme camp organizer and being like, hey, just have a conversation with your neighbor.
This is KGB. One thing I would just add to that is sound level is an important thing. So if you're not in a large scale sound area and you're being too loud for the neighbors, that's one thing. But if you're just too interactive for the neighbors, I think that's a different issue. And maybe the neighbors
what?
A little bit. I mean, if their complaint is, oh my gosh, you have too much stuff going on, that may not, you may need to have a nice conversation with them.
Okay, you can take some of those little swabs out there too.
Can everybody, if you're not talking, can you go on mute?
You got a clap for it?
Thanks, Muppet.
FS45A, etc. You're too loud. Thanks. So that's the difference, really. Sound or things that really could disturb the neighbors at 4 in the morning may be one thing. But if you're just super interactive, that's a whole other thing, I think.
Thank you, KGB.
Awesome. Next up is Swaggy, and following Swaggy is a question from 6 about equipment. So Swaggy, go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm running a Camp Bang Bang this year. We're a 10-year camp. I just had a question. Prior to, at what point do you guys release a map of the city showing where the theme camps are going to be, or where, theme camps will be, and where, like, say, free camping will be? And the reason is that part of our sort of interactive schedule this year is potentially like a little bit of a collaboration with some people that might be doing there might be free camping and trying to maybe engage with the community that aren't in theme camps, and so would have a preference to be maybe near some free camping space when allocated. Yeah? Thank you.
We publish the map when the city opens. Is the general rule that with this cultural direction stuff that might be changing, probably not this year, possibly next year. But I had put a link in the chat earlier that had kind of a layout with the city, the registered sectors and stuff, and that's it's very vague as far as what's open camping. But open camping tends to be outside of H to L now, generally, apart from along the avenues. So each part of the city has some open camping, but like, so the avenues like 9:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 8:30, 8 o'clock, we'll probably have camps that go all the way out to L up those avenues.
Again, if you are going to be doing something, tell us about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to interact with people in open camping, tell us, oh, we're doing this and we want to interact with people in open camping, and we will try to place you appropriately.
Also, if you've got some associates who are planning on setting up an open camping and they do not have work access passes to get in early, you should not go out and lay out a spot for them before they arrive. No land grabbing. Land grabbing is really, really bad.
Nor should you give them any of your work access passes as well.
So claim land in open camping. Yeah. So land grabbing is a huge issue. We're dealing with it every year. It's a drain on our time, and it's just a really crappy thing to do to people who are trying to find space when the gates open.
Who don't get the luxury of getting into the city early, and that will affect your standing for the following year, most likely.
Sweet. Thanks, Swaggy. Next up is 6.
Hello again. Thank you. This has been so informative. Mine, I guess, is in regards to Build Week, which we haven't really done a lot of talking about. But sometimes, I see all this equipment, and I know there's sections in the application that asks for, do you need heavy equipment or this, that, and the other thing? And we never really think that we need it, but sometimes during build week, it could help, or this, that, and the other thing. Is it just talk to your placer on Playa is the best way to do that? Or or is there, like I know at one point there was like a power grid. I don't know if there's a certain requirement for that. Like I guess it's like, what can we do in terms of getting equipment if we need it once we're there and we didn't realize we needed it? And is there some sort of thing about the power grid that could be discussed, I guess?
So I'll talk about heavy equipment because that's kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit. So that is definitely going to your placer on Playa. We can't take requests before. The organization the Bring Man Project has heavy equipment out there, as you've seen it, because they need to build the infrastructure of the city. They do love to help out theme camps, but we are very low in the criteria and in the order of getting heavy equipment. So placers will generally know other camps that have heavy equipment if you need something. So they can point you in the right direction and saying, oh, those people have a forklift, go ask them, and that kind of stuff. There's also the theme camp, we have theme camp Facebook pages for all of the different parts of the city that you can join and ask people there if they're bringing stuff out, or if you've got a need, if you want to try to arrange something beforehand, and that kind of stuff. There are certain things just to, so they don't help, the heavy equipment team for Burning Man do not help set up domes. They used to help, and then the dome structures got bigger and bigger and bigger. As far as, it was a 36-foot dome was the maximum or the minimum they would help set up, and then it changed a few years ago. Now they're just not helping set up domes because they just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So is that all the heavy equipment stuff?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
What was the other part of the question? There was two.
Yeah.
Just I remember, I don't know, this will be my 15th burn in a row, and at one point we were on I think we replaced the
plaza, like we were talking
on
about
a plaza, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So the only
Well, we didn't know about the power, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, there's only 3 areas of the burn that allows you to plug into power grid, and that is the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock B plazas, and also center camp. And there's lots. If you're placed in those areas, you'll end up getting an email with instructions about what to plug in and what not to plug in, etc. But they do this just for those areas because they're close to generators, and in theory, those plazas are high interactivity level. We help out there. Otherwise, there's no power grid throughout the city. Bring your own.
Just to add one, this is KGB. Just to add one thing about heavy equipment. In the questionnaire, there's a place for people to say what heavy equipment they'll be bringing, and then a question of whether they're willing to share or not. But really, the best thing to do is, if you see a neighbor camp has heavy equipment that they're using that you could maybe need, you might need for 20 minutes, you might just walk over there and say, hey, I noticed you have this really nifty forklift. Do you when you get a chance, could you come over for 10 minutes and help us out? That's probably the best way to do it. Yeah, otherwise, talk to your placer.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll jump back in on power for just a second. Those 3 sections of the city have power because Burning Man needs power there. And Burning Man has some extra power that we make available to the participants, mostly for lighting and interactivity needs. You cannot plug your RVs into it. And it's really just for running your interactivity. It's limited. And if you abuse it, the power team will come over and cut you off. So it is a very limited resource, and it happens in those 3 sections of the city because Burning Man already has power there because it's necessary for emergency services and things.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sweet. I'm going to ask like a little mashup question because I saw Chip and Scribbly were sort of asking the same thing, so I'll just smush those together. The question is, we always talk about the level of interactivity required increasing as the camp size grows. I was wondering if there's a general standard of participation hours per camp member as far as running the interactivity.
I think that hours per camp member is sort of too strict of a measure. There's not a strict algorithm. most of your campers should be involved in your interactivity. I guess the best I can say right now is a reasonable amount of the time. If your camp is growing by a third, your interactivity should grow pretty much by a third. That doesn't mean you have to do, maybe you do more hours, maybe you can take care of more people, right? If you were giving back rubs, maybe you bring in a third more massage therapists and you give more back rubs for the same amount of time. I don't know. Does someone else have maybe a more detailed, better feel for that one?
That's about right, it seems. I was expecting Papa Bear to jump in on this one, but maybe
I was answering cats again, so I missed part of the question.
I think if we're just sort of like, yeah, that's about right. If you have really specific questions about that, as regards your camp, please send us an email, placement at, and we'll try and like look into that and answer you like with specific information for your camp. We're getting really close to the end, y'all. We have about 7 minutes left for questions, and then we're going to save 5 minutes at the end to close it out. I know some new people have joined. I don't know. I'm kind of just like popcorning, looking for a couple good closing questions. What do you guys do to relax on playa after your placement duties are done? Does any placer want to answer that, or would that be too much?
They're never done.
They're already answering.
I'll answer it in general. We're building a blah blah bar this year.
I said sleep.
That's a secret.
It is?
I know where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's relax and top shelf tequila.
Well, plus our nights don't end till we call it at like 11:30 midnight. So you don't really have a lot of energy after that during build week anyways.
Yeah, and we're up at 7 or so.
You're all welcome at Spanky's Wine Bar when you're done working.
Thanks, y'all. I'm just gonna say this one out loud because I saw a couple people in the chat asking about cooperating with neighbors, and folks asking if there's a way they can understand nearby camps. So there's actually a group in cultural direction setting that is working on this specific question. Group 4, aka the placement process, I'm part of that group. The Governess is also on that group, and a nice selection of theme camp leads and other folks working for placement. So we're working on that. We hope we'll be able to release some more information about that soon, but it's not ready yet. We need to polish it up a little more. So thanks for being patient, you guys. And then let me see, seeing if anything else pops out at me. Does anyone, oh, here we go. I like this one. Levity Betty, you just asked about rating. And then I think we're gonna close it out with 6 and the WAP question. Levity Betty, do you wanna go ahead and ask your question?
Oh my God, okay, hi. Yeah, so I've had a few local camps that have been going for 10 to 15 years and took a year off. And when it came time for DGS, they were cut way back just from taking 1 year off. And I'm just wondering if that played into it.
No, I can answer that. No. So what happens is that every year there's more and more camps that are getting placed. That hasn't really stopped. And the number of tickets we have available for DGS doesn't really increase that much. So if they're seeing a decrease in the amount of DGS they were given from 1 year to another year, it's because there's less tickets to give out to all the camps and everyone is receiving a decrease. It's not a specific thing. The only way you're going to get a decrease in your DGS allotment for something specific is if you are limited or not in good standing currently. and they would have been told that via an email saying you're in limited standing, we're cutting back your DGS. Otherwise, it's just distribution is wider than every year. And on that, really, if you're taking a year off, it's the general statement. If you're going to take a year off, please email us as soon as possible so that we can not assign you DGS for that year. And that way, when you email us that you're coming back the following year, then we assign you DGS. If you don't email us and you accept your DGS and buy them, but don't actually register as a camp and don't get placed, then you will not get DGS the following year.
That makes sense. Yeah, and then also one of the camps had a rogue campmate that ended up in med tent 3 times, and they were afraid that ended up being their fallout, why they ended up. And then my last question was about the rating. Who does this rating? Who should we invite over to our camp? Make sure they know that we're good to go. I mean, we're not Spankies, but you know, who is?
I'm going to jump in just for that middle question there. Information about medical issues is privacy protected information. We do not have any information whatsoever about who was in the med tent or anything like that, just to clear the air on that. And then Placer, if you want to hit Levity Betty's question about rating, and then 6, if you want to ask your question, and then we'll be done.
Placers are the ones who review and rate your camp, but we don't take bribes. So you can invite us over to come check out your interactivity, and we'll totally check it out because we want to be able to review your camp, push all the buttons on all the things that you built and etc. But yeah, we do the reviews and we do the ratings and we write the feedback and all that kind of stuff.
But we also have the camp survey squad that goes out, and another group of volunteers that talks to camps and see if camps are doing what they say they're going to do and stuff like that. And that's a group that I think last year we hit like 900 camps. Is that right, Muppet? Do you know? I mean, it was almost, we caught almost every single camp that we played, every theme camp that we placed.
I don't know off the top of my head,
but I think it was a huge increase from the number. So we get feedback from them as well on what happened, what's actually happening on Playa, because there's only 17 of us, and it's hard for us to go to 1,400 or 1,300 and something 1,100 and something camps.
I want to add on that the camp survey squad is not they're not out there to judge the camps or to make any kind of opinions whatsoever. They're there to connect with the camps, and they're actually, part of their job is to give us feedback from you, the camps that we haven't had a chance to visit. So like, welcome them with open arms and show them your space and what cool things you're doing, and we do read through the feedback that they give us and try to improve to make your lives better.
And this is KGB. I would just add one thing to that is that, you know, when you're getting placed, tell your placer, hey, we've got this thing on Wednesday that you really should stop by. And we can try. There's so many camps that we can't always do it. But if we get a chance to stop by and see what's going on and see your interactivity and see people enjoying it, that just supplements what we know about your camp other than what we've read in your questionnaire. So just being able to see it, even if we don't spend a lot of time, helps us when we're thinking about your camp for the next year.
Awesome. And if folks were in the plenary session this morning, you probably heard Group 2 give their update on the criteria, and I think that's a good place to look for information about like how we're going to be evaluating camps as we move forward, and hope that provides a lot more transparency for everybody. With that, we have about 4 minutes left until we get a little break. So we wanted to save time for appreciations. We're gonna, hopefully this won't devolve into too much chaos. What I'm gonna try and do, rather than manage a stack, is if you unmute yourself, if no one's talking, then you'll become the speaker, and then you can give your appreciation. The other thing is I dropped a link in the chat for a feedback form. We want your feedback about how this event has gone today. We went from, you know, getting it ready as an in-person event to turning it fully virtual in a matter of a couple weeks, and we really want to hear from you how it's gone. So please fill out that form. I'll drop the link in again, And everybody, but one at a time, go on appreciations.
Woo! I'll go first.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
You guys are amazing. All the things that you do and that you bring and that you pack into tiny little spaces to then bring and unpack. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys are amazing.
I got a statement. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. We're working together to make a beautiful city, and we're all compatriots and work partners. And so thank you for all the work you do, and you make our jobs fun.
Well, you're sure good at it. Thank you very much.
You guys are welcome to Late Night Food Court.
Thank you for all of your work.
I want to appreciate everybody that joined this call. There was over 70 people. And if you didn't show up, it would just be placers talking to each other, which we do all the time. It was much better than that.
It was over 80 for the record.
Thanks, Muppet, for moderating. It's been awesome.
I think this could go several hours, though, for sure.
Thanks for the knowledge and transparency.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You guys rock.
I'm applicant. This has been really, really helpful just to get feedback from everyone who's applied before. So thank you.
Killed it. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for the great questions. And don't forget, if you've got more, just email placement@burningman.org and we can get back to you.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So we have a 15-minute break until breakout session 2. So go get a snack, get a drink. And we recorded this session, so it's gonna be available when we get it all polished up. So you guys can share it with your campmates or anyone else who wants to listen in on what we talked about. Thanks everybody. Love you guys. Burn on.
Come get your feet washed at Healing Foot Wash Camp.